Hello, I'm Richard Gisbert, and you're at The Listening Post. This week, conflict in Lebanon. Telephone networks and TV stations, the new battlegrounds. 60 years on, how the world is reporting Israel's anniversary. And Hillary Clinton gets a satirical makeover from Saturday Night Live.
First, I am a sore loser.
Welcome back. Here at The Listening Post, we've reported before on the media divide that exists in Lebanon, where television stations and newspapers openly take sides in the political debate. Well, the ideological battleground now includes the country's communications infrastructure. The trigger for the recent violence in Beirut was a move by the government to clamp down on a telecommunications network operated by the opposition group Hezbollah. In the days of fighting that followed, the Lebanese media have been trapped in the crossfire and now face the possibility of becoming even more divided. That's our starting point this week. Lebanon, its factionalized media landscape, and the so-called cell phone civil war. After spending 18 months on a knife edge between war and peace, Lebanon has fallen back into the fires of civil unrest. Only this time, the spark that set things off wasn't an assassination or any conventional act of war.
The fighting was set off by the government's decision to ban Hezbollah's telecommunications system, which the group deems vital for operations.
Pro-Syrian Hezbollah was accused of operating its own telecommunications system, effectively running a state within a state.
Well, this has really been a slow burn over not a few days or a few hours, but over a number of months. The issue of Hezbollah's independent telecom network has been raised actually for several years.
Hezbollah, which leads the opposition forces against the government of Fuad Signora, first established its mobile phone network in the late 90s. That communication system played a central coordinating role in the 2006 war against Israel.
Like any top secret organization, any military organization in the world, there has to be secure communications lines. Hezbollah says it's threatened by Israel. It cannot use the regular Lebanese telephone lines. Obviously, that wouldn't be very secure. And during different parts of bombardments of Beirut, they would be cut off. So they have to have their own secret network.
Not only did Hezbollah have its own telecom infrastructure to coordinate, let's say, with fighters in South Lebanon, but they had built two Christian areas in the north and on the coast. The next charge was that Hezbollah is listening in on all telecommunications in Lebanon. So you can see that the telecom issue, which had been around for quite a long time, all of a sudden became a different issue. And so the charge there was basically Hezbollah has created a state within a state.
Hezbollah's telecommunications network has exceeded what is necessary, and its size has been expanding. Nasrallah admits to this, and this has contravened the sovereignty of the laws.
And when the government moved to shut down the system, Hezbollah's leader, Sayed Nasrallah, called it an act of war.
This decision is a declaration of war against the resistance. This decision is designed to push the resistance and the military into a direct confrontation.
Hezbollah is a resistance movement which is armed. The core weapon in any armed resistance movement is, number one, its weapons, and secondly, its communication system. So as if you're asking a resistance movement to renegade on its own communication system. And this like you're putting a patient on life support system, which eventually he's going to die.
We will cut off the hands of anyone who will target the weapons of the resistance.
Hezbollah fought back, and within hours, parts of Beirut were under Hezbollah's control. The world, familiar with images of Lebanese gunmen on the streets, was watching something different. The cell phone civil war spread when opposition fighters attacked this leading pro-government TV station, Future TV, and knocked it off the air.
It was a strategic move to try and take out that news outlet.
Take a look as we walk through at the damage that has been caused here.
There are 6 or 7 channels in the country, and each channel represents a political direction. And now, with the country being split into 2 directions, supported by 2 directions in the Arab world as well, each party or each political direction considers the other media channels as their enemies.
There's a second level too, which is that Hezbollah's Al-Manar TV station withstood 33 days of continuous assault from the Israelis, and the Israelis were not able to knock them off the air, in basically decapitating the Future Movement's ability to broadcast.
Future TV, which is currently going up in smoke.
What Hezbollah has done is it's shown that we can do to you in a few hours what the Israelis with the most sophisticated equipment in the world could not do in 33 days. So that was a part and parcel of the power play.
Having silenced one of the government's most influential channels, Hezbollah had raised the stakes and provoked an all-out propaganda war. And the government's message was still getting out, largely via media outlets funded and often controlled by Saudi Arabia.
Among the Saudi-funded newspapers and channels, and this most prominently being الشرق الأوسط, Al-Hayat, Al-Arabiya.
علياء كيف الصورة لديك الآن؟
يعني الاشتباكات لا تزال مستمرة.
You're seeing really a sort of concerted offensive by the Saudi-funded media outlets to really try and ratchet up the pressure on Hezbollah.
Al-Arabiya has turned to be a de facto replacement not only of Future, of instigating secular frictions. What does this serve? It serves burning of the country. Does any TV channel want to be accused of such an action?
Al Arabiya has defended its coverage, saying it offered everyone a chance to speak for themselves, that the militias chose not to and sought to intimidate the Saudi-owned channel from reporting what it called the facts. Lebanon, where the media don't just cover the news, don't just drive the story. More and more often in Lebanon, the media are the news. They are the story. Our Global Village Voices now with their take on the coverage of the conflict in Lebanon.
It is the media itself that's become the arena for the fighting, so that we saw the Hariri family's Future TV station being closed down. That's obviously a great concern. The very complex, sophisticated network of politics in Lebanon, I think, is very difficult for outsiders to understand, and I think the media's really been doing a very good job in trying to lay out quite how complex it is.
The Lebanese media is that a lot of them, at any rate, are very strongly affiliated with political parties, which isn't just to say that they lean strongly in one direction or the other, but they're actually owned and run by political parties. The best examples are Hezbollah's Al-Manar television and the Future Movement's Future TV. So clearly a lot of the coverage about the conflict has been very partisan in its lines.
We're always open to direct on-air feedback from our viewers on the state of the news media. That's what Global Village Voices are all about. Email us at listeningpost@aljazeera.net and we'll teach you through your technology to stop yelling at your television and start talking through your webcam. Time now for our Listening Post News Bites. Media watchers are talking about the Chinese government's response to the huge earthquake there, the relatively open way Chinese news outlets are being allowed to report on that story. The coverage on Chinese television was extensive, a big change from previous natural disasters which tended to downplay damage and death tolls. It's been suggested that with the Beijing Olympics coming, the authorities want to show they're serious about media reforms. On the subject of the Beijing Games, they are one of the biggest news stories of this year, and according to the Reuters news agency, they'll set a world record for television revenues. Reuters has been looking at the books of the International Olympic Committee, and it says that between 2005 and 2008, global broadcasters will have paid the IOC $2.5 billion. That's almost $1 billion more than the 2006 World Cup of Football, which is the Olympics' closest competitor in terms of television money. And the Games will get even bigger in the future. Income from the 2010 Winter Games in Vancouver and the 2012 Summer Games in London is expected to grow by another 40%. The small Austrian town of Amstetten has become a magnet for the news media, given that terrible story of the long-term imprisonment and alleged abuse of a woman by her own father. And the paparazzi have pushed the bounds of decency in their pursuit of pictures. Police in Austria say they've nabbed 13 photographers, some of whom had disguised themselves as policemen and cleaning staff. Others climbed trees and camouflaged themselves, trying to get shots of the victims. The media siege of the house and the hospital involved was so bad, the authorities called in the Austrian military's elite anti-terror squad, who have been using thermal imaging cameras and guard dogs to root out over-exuberant news photographers. French President Nicolas Sarkozy has a prickly relationship with the news media there. His latest dust-up involves the news agency Agence France-Presse and the issue of what is really news. Sarkozy's party has accused AFP of censorship for not publishing a press release on a court case that the president wanted covered. Sarkozy is tight with the bosses of many French media companies, some of whom he appointed, and he's made it clear he'll flex political muscle if that's what it takes to get his way with the media. Sarkozy's critics suggest the president is simply attacking the media to create a smokescreen in order to distract attention from his record-low approval ratings. A follow-up now on a story that we reported last week about the Pentagon pundits, those retired generals that the U.S. military sent into action on the airwaves to help sell the Iraq war. It took the New York Times, which broke the story, 2 years and a lawsuit to get the relevant documents from the Pentagon. Now, all those documents have been posted online, including audio tapes of meetings involving the generals and the then Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld.
I'm an old intel guy, and I can sum all of this up, unfortunately, with one word, and that is psyops. Now, most people, when they hear that, they think, oh my God, they're trying to brainwash.
What are you, some kind of a nut? You don't believe in the Constitution?
Anyone can access the documents via the New York Times' website, www.nytimes.com. Coming up after the break, reporting on Israel's anniversary. Does the Western media know the Arabic word for catastrophe?